Let's transition, though, to another hire, one that, maybe because it didn't work out in Atlanta for Arthur Smith as their head coach, but now he goes to Pittsburgh in kind of a pivotal spot. The Steelers are coming off, once again, a winning season, going to the playoffs. It was incredible, considering the quarterback situation there, too, winning with backups. But are you surprised by this hire? Is there some concerns because offensively it didn't work out in Atlanta with him now taking over in this critical point, I think, for Mike Tomlin, the Pittsburgh Steelers, as he goes into the final year of his deal?
Yeah, a little surprised, but not too much, just knowing how Mike Tomlin thinks, right? He's a defensive-minded coach. And Brady, defensive-minded coaches, they want a physical run game. And Arthur Smith does that to a T. Now, for all the, issues he had in Atlanta with maybe not getting the most out of Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts and also London Drake, we know for sure that they were going to run the pill in Atlanta.
Which, by the way, it was a little bit interesting that they say that. Like, he did carry the ball over 217 times.
Yeah, I thought that was a little weird, too.
8 receptions. I was like, for a rookie running back, that's kind of a lot, especially considering how good Algier was in spots for them. Like, I didn't look at it and think, like, oh, you didn't utilize him enough. Maybe it just didn't quite work out the way we tried to utilize him.
Well, you know what it is, Brady. When you're drafted that high, you're compared to the guy that was drafted right after you, and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Jahmyr Gibbs having a little bit better of a season, getting drafted a few spots after him. They get that comparison, and they're probably thinking, why aren't they using them like Jahmyr Gibbs? Where, like you said, essentially they kind of did. He just didn't have the production that Jahmyr Gibbs had as well. But going back to Arthur Smith, I think Mike Tomlin sat back and said, we need to get back to the old Steeler way, right? The physicalness in the trenches. We need to run the ball consistently because they really didn't run the ball consistently until like the last 2 or 3 games of the season, right? For a good portion of the season, Jaylen Warren was the most explosive back, and he was splitting carries. And then all of a sudden it kind of changed the last 3 weeks where, Najee Harris found the fountain of youth, I guess, is more like it, and decided to really run a little bit more physical. And he averaged over 4 yards a carry the last 3 games, where before that, he was averaging like 3.7 yards a carry. So I think Mike Tomlin thought about it and was like, I want to bring that old physical attitude. And I know with Arthur Smith, we're going to get that. Now, the question is, will he get the best out of George Pickens, right? Because we saw over when he was with the Atlanta Falcons that he didn't get the best out of Kyle Pitts or even Drake London. So I think that's the biggest concern coming into it. But I know for one thing for sure, Brady, they're going to have a physical run game with Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and just back to the initial point, I mean, obviously, Bijan Robinson carried the football more. He caught the football more. He's targeted more. Gibbs wasn't even used quite as much until kind of the halfway point of the season for Detroit. They started to turn that on. So I attributed more to the quarterback situation there in Atlanta. I think that was something that, if you go back to Arthur Smith's time as a play caller for the Tennessee Titans, they were top 10 in both scoring and yards one year. They were top 12 at a minimum, both scoring and yards his other year there. The quarterback play was better with Ryan Tannehill during that time. And obviously Derrick Henry is a huge piece of that too, right? But to your point, like I think you get back to a situation where the question is still, who's the quarterback? I mean, we've heard Art Rooney even talk about it. Mike Tomlin's talked about it. They want competition for Kenny Pickett going into the offseason. I would suspect they're going to bring in a big free agent. And if I was a free agent that I had success in the past and I'm trying to resurrect my career, one of the things that with Mike Tomlin teams so far, you're going to have a winning record. You're going to have a shot at going to the playoffs. You have talent around you. You have a defense that's not going to force you to be in a position of shootouts. That would be a wonderful spot. If I'm a quarterback who's become a free agent and I'm trying to resurrect things or try to go win and get into the playoffs, the only downside is the fact that you're going to be in the AFC where the best quarterbacks are in the NFL right now. So that's the biggest struggle. But outside of that, I think it'd be a really good scenario for any free agent to come in there, go compete. If you win the job, you're set up, I think, to be successful based on what they currently have. But that's still a big question, I think, going into the offseason. Or do you think it's Kenny Pickett's job? They just want him to win the battle as they go into 2024.
From everything I've heard, it's going to be a quarterback competition. I would not be surprised if Pickett doesn't start training camp as the number 2 guy, right? So to your point, Mason Rudolph, did he do enough to warrant a contract that's big enough where the Steelers don't pay him? Or does a guy like Russell Wilson come into play in this scenario, right? A guy that most likely is going to be a free agent. If I'm Mason Rudolph, though, I saw how this team kind of rallied around me. And depending on what the free agent market looks like, I might take a Baker Mayfield type deal to become the starter for, the foreseeable future, because Baker Mayfield was able to take his opportunity, and he's going to turn it into probably a 3-year type deal this offseason, because he's earned it, right? I can see Mason Rudolph doing the same thing, even if a team, let's say, offers him $1 million or $2 million to come there, but he knows the Steelers locker room. He knows the organization. He knows that they're willing to change quarterbacks up. So he knows he's going to have a legit opportunity to be the quarterback for the next 3 to 5 years. So if I'm Mason Rudolph, I know Rooney said he's going to bring in a veteran. I wonder if he's thought about putting Mason Rudolph in that conversation.
And I'm thinking a bigger name than that. I think they know what they have in Mason Rudolph. I think they view him as a backup. I would think like Russell Wilson, someone like that who, could maybe find his way to a place like Pittsburgh, where if he goes there, given his contract and everything else, that'd be one thing. But if he's released and can sign that free agent deal, that would be a spot that I think would be a really interesting mix based on, his track record. I know things haven't worked out in Denver, but he would be a guy that I'd keep an eye on. I mean, I know Kirk Cousins is a free agent. They got to figure out things there. He's going to be highly desired.
Yeah.
Well, again, he's going to be highly desired to see where he wants to go. The toughest thing for someone in Cousins' position is we know how the Pittsburgh Steelers like to structure their contracts. They don't have big signing bonuses. Cousins has been arguably one of the best in the business of football. So
best businessman ever.
I'm not sure we're going to get the contract that he's looking for. All right.